Welcome back to SA Today. Now, US President Donald Trump is once again drawing fast criticism, this time for comments targeting the Smithsonian Institute. In a social media post on Tuesday, Trump actually accused the institution of placing far too much emphasis on the horrors of slavery in its exhibits and suggested he would pressure the museum's complex to change its approach, echoing earlier threats that he had made to universities over federal funding. Remember Harvard? For more on this, let's now speak to Ms. Ayeesha Kajee, who's an international relations analyst. So, Ayeesha, it's great to have you with us. Happy Women's Month to you. I mean, what was your...
Ayeesha, and to all the ladies watching.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Ayeesha. I mean, what was your first reaction to this latest move by Trump? Let me tell you something. Apparently, Trump's camp is saying President Trump will explore all options and avenues to get the woke out of the Smithsonian and hold them to account. What do you say to these assertions?
Ayeesha, unfortunately, or fortunately, I don't know. I'm collecting Trumpisms at this point since the beginning of this presidency. So this, for me, is just another example of how Mr. Trump goes off at a tangent on certain issues, like this issue of slavery, not acknowledging its role in American history, the role that slaves played in bringing the United States of America into that leading position in the economic and political, its leading position in both economics and politics worldwide. A lot of that really depended on the slave trade and the role that slaves played in sustaining major American exports such as and crops such as sugar, tobacco, etc. So for Mr. Trump to make this kind of allegation that the Smithsonian's focus on slavery is a woke issue is so far out there. It's so much out in left field. It feels like it's a smack in the face to people of color in the United States and elsewhere, because it appears to negate the role that slavery played and the slave trade played in basically making the so-called First World what it is. And it also appears to be so anti-intellectual, so historical or ahistorical, so unconsciously and perhaps even consciously, diminishing the role of both history and culture, trauma, torture, etc., in the collective American and the collective global psyche. So, for him to be threatening the Smithsonian, one of the United States' premier research and museum organizations, something that draws hundreds, if not thousands of tourists every month to the Smithsonian institutions, that is renowned for scholarship and its preservation of history and culture and archetypes, it just feels like a slap in the face, quite frankly. It feels like Mr. Trump, picks up on something that he, for whatever reason, does not like, perhaps because of his white supremacist, orientation. And then he runs with it to the extent that he is uncaring of whether it tears into the social fabric of the United States, of communities within the United States. He is uncaring of whether it draws anger and ire from intellectuals, from scientists, from academics, from sites of memorialization, etc. He's totally uncaring of that. Mr. Trump's worldview is perhaps one of the strangest things about him. And it appears to be echoed by those around him. And yet, outside of that very small circle, it is a worldview that is not shared by and large, even by white supremacists, even by people on the extreme right of the American political spectrum. So it just feels like Mr. Trump and his closest advisors are living in a rarefied bubble where they believe anything they think or say should be adopted by the rest of society, both American society and worldwide. And it's bizarre, to say the least, to have a head of state running with these kinds of things. Sometimes I wonder, really, Ayeesha, whether he's doing it to draw attention away from other things that he might be attempting to do at the same time, because it just feels like such a performative thing.
You know, Ayeesha, and is so brazen about it. I mean, he says, yeah, he will start with the Smithsonian and then go from there, right? And one has to wonder, as you rightly put it out there, slave trade is a very crucial and key part of American history. They still actually have existential plantation museums where Black Americans still gather to come and commemorate and reflect upon their history. Can he actually order independent and legacy institutions such as this one in case of a museum in this matter, because museums are places that are meant to be the historical guides in that they showcase history as it was, Ayeesha, without any influence, as bad as it might be. And what legal authority can he do so under in terms of international law? Because the university, the museum actually responded here and said they are not a federal agency under control of the president, and according to them, they're an independent institution governed by a board of regents, which is imposed or composed of 17 members, including the vice president, and Trump absolutely has no authority over private museums. So what is he going to do? Just talk.
I believe so. I mean, look, he can cut some federal funding. There is some funding that goes to certain of the Smithsonian institutions that comes from the state. But by and large, as they've said in their response, they are a private institution. They are governed by a board, which does include, a position for the vice president. But that is a democratically composed board. It is a board that operates by consensus. So the vice president in this case would not have the authority to impose a decision, even on that board. And certainly, yes, as I said, I think this is really rather performative. Mr. Trump mouthing off once again without checking to see whether he has the power to do what he thinks he has the power to do. And we've seen this in his, his so-called diplomatic efforts. We've seen this, for example, when Mr. Zelensky visited the White House. We saw an attempt at similar with our own President Ramaphosa. We've seen it in his appointment of people like Elon Musk to the then Department of Government Efficiency, and then the breakup of that brotherhood, that bromance, as it was being called in the media. So, Mr. Trump seems to have a very inflated sense of self, to the extent where he literally believes in that hype about being the leader of the free world.
All right. Yeah. All right, Ayeesha, we're going to leave it there. Thank you so much for your views there, Miss Ayeesha Kajee, the international relations analyst, just weighing in on, of course, Trump's comments there regarding the Smithsonian Institution, which is, of course, that one of those museums that actually showcases some of slave trade as well as associated depictions in the United States.